Nigeria's population is often referred to in some quarters as a young population because about 60% of the population is aged between 18 and 45. When this young population will get into positions of leadership is a conversation that has continued to play out in different quarters. How they will get into leadership positions is another question altogether. My guest talks about how the young can be brought into leadership and what it means for them to get into leadership. He also talks about the fact that many of the times we say a leader is corrupt, it is just a product of what the society has made of that leader. How does that work out? Newsnight sat down with Senator Kabiru Gaya, a former governor of Kano State and a senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, who was one time a chair of the Senate Committee on Works. Distinguished Senator Gaya, thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you very much for having me in this program.
You are one, if I may use the phrase, quintessential politician. I mean, you started out in the NPN and you moved on in 1992, Second Republic. You went to the Third Nigerian Republic. You were part of the politics at that time. In all of this, I want us to start from that part of your historical background in this area of politics. How would you say the journey has been?
Well, political journey in Nigeria is like the Nigerian weather. When you are in an aircraft, sometimes it goes smooth, and when there's cloud, you get into turbulence, and yet we get out of it. Not any more serious accidents of aircraft in Nigeria. So I have gone through this. In 1982, precisely, I started politics. 82. I was a member of NPN, and I know PRP was strong in Kano, but I decided to go to a party that should have national outlook, even though I was a young man by then. And I was one of the youth leaders at that particular time. And in 93, I tried to contest for an election, but they were saying my age was not good enough for me to be elected as representative of the people. But I played my role as a politician. And from the NPN, we came to different political parties. When there was coup, the military overthrew Shagari and the government of Shagari. And some of us who are politicians were also, when there is a coup, everybody goes back home and start going back to the drawing board to see what I can do. I'm lucky I've been an architect, so I went back to my drawing board, proportionally to my office as an architect. And I was practicing architecture even before 1982, precisely 1981. So I went back to the drawing board. But you know, the Nigerian politics keeps on changing and coming on and off. And when the military decided to let some of us youth participate in politics, and were given a chance to go for election. In 1989, I started campaigning to run for the governorship of Kano State. I was a young man, I was just 35 at that time. And most people say, how can this young boy become a governor of Kano State? It will be difficult for him to win. And I could remember my late brother, who has been my teacher in politics, that's Abuja, said, this boy, even if you give him Kano, that means he has won the election. If you start running, he'll pass his village. Because he'll be so scared to be a leader of the state. But luckily enough, he was one of the people that, when God makes things, it has to work that way. He was one of the leaders that supported me in becoming a governor of the state, because at that time, the military under Babangida administration have banned many senior politicians. And very few of us young have the whole field to play. And that's why when I had the confidence in running for a governor of my state, I was a young man, but I had confidence that I would win the election. At that time, Kano and Jigawa was one state. There was no split of Jigawa. So myself and Sule Lamido, who became governor many years later of Jigawa State, were the major contenders in the election of NRC and SDP. But I was very lucky, they created Jigawa State, so I expected Sule Lamido to go to Jigawa State, so I will have free land in Kano to play. But fortunately enough, they were banned, and I was free to win in Kano, and I won my primaries as a candidate of NRC in Kano State. And after that, we campaigned. And luckily enough, there was a split between SDP, SDP
and NRC.
And SDP itself is a party that was split within the leadership. There are three factions. There is Limi factions, there is Aminu Kano factions, and there is one new faction which is a civil servant which has been supported by the military at the top, that he must be the governor of the state. And then the Limi faction said, no, this man can't be, they can't impose somebody on them. Then I was in good relationship with the Aminu Kano's factions. So they went through primaries, the Limi section, the SDP. 3 times the other faction are winning, and they said, no, they want this person. At the end of the day, they agreed to support me. I remember I met Abubakar Rimi asking for his support to be the governor of Kano. He said, no, go tell all our followers to support you. You are much younger and you respect us. So because you respect us, we will support you. And I believe you can do, you're educated enough, you can do the best you can for this country, for this state. And that's how I became the governor of the state. So it was a journey that is full of ups and downs. And, our problem in Kano, during politics, we all play politics. Even during military rule, if a governor did not take one section of the political party and takes another, he will be in trouble. So even during military rule, we still play politics in Kano. So
politics is a part of the lifestyle.
It's part of the lifestyle to any young aspiring man, or even the older ones in politics. It's part of the game in Kano State. And up to today, you find that, you remember President Tinubu appointed one lady, and because of a cry and complaints from Kano people, he changed to another lady, a person who has been a grassroots politician. So you see, Kano, we play this in politics, and I believe that it's something that I've learned a lot in it.
So in all of these things, you started out at 27.
Not 37.
You became a governor at 35.
No. I became a governor at 37.
At 37?
Yes.
But you started out in 1982 in politics, active politics.
Yeah, I was a very young man at that time.
So at that time, you were less than 30?
Of course, I was about 25 or 24.
25. I actually put 27 here. But let's say, so that journey from when you started to when you became a governor at 37, you were still a young man.
Yes.
And since then, you have had forays into the political space. From that time, you took a hiatus, came back as a senator, and you've been in the Senate. You served Nigeria. And would you say you have done well?
Well, we do not like to blow our own trumpet, but I believe I've done my best for my state or for my constituency, then for my state and for the nation in general. When I was in the Senate, I proposed so many bills. And some of the bills are now being used as an option to assist the community. Like I sponsored the Northeast Development Commission bill, whereby we now have Northeast Development Commission. And the other senators from that zone say, how Gaya coming from Northwest and is proposing a bill for Northeast. But it went like that, and we had the bill. And I'm happy that the senators and House of members from that area supported me to get that bill done. And Mr. President signed the bill, and we now have a full-fledged commission. And that why I proposed that was because when the government, the political government is helping Northeast, it's just they're helping them outside the budget, or within the budget, I mean. But when you have a commission, there will be a solid money for the commission. And any other organization in the world, or sponsors, donor organization, they can be able to help that commission, and that could be good for that organization. So I think It was a bill that I sponsored, and I'm proud of it.
You've also you've sponsored a couple of other bills that that have made waves, and some you stood against. For one, you stood against the bill to privatize Nigerian roads.
Yeah, because
that was in 2008.
Yeah, you know why I was against it?
Why?
Because I believe Nigerian roads shouldn't be privatized at that time. Because the roads are bad. If you put a toll gate where the road is bad, if you are not careful, the person collecting the revenue will be beaten up by the drivers or by the passengers. Well, when the road is bad and you toll the road, it's unfortunate. But for example, when the roads are good, like Lagos-Ibadan road, if you toll that, is good because the road is far, is good, you can toll that road. And like Kano, Zaria, and Zaria, Kaduna, you can toll that. But Kaduna, Abuja, you cannot because it's not completed. So when we have good roads, because I was chairman works, and I was one of the, all the projects I put in the budget, it helps Buhari's administration. And that when they were campaigning for a second term, most of their campaign was on the roads. They did the second Niger bridge. By the time I came as the chairman works of the Senate, the second Niger bridge was just about 10%. And even though we wanted to put an inquiry to investigate how the money came in and how much was spent on so far the foundation or one pillar or a section of the project. But sadly, the project was, at that time, it was not, it was good for investigation. So I can say that at that time, you cannot toll the road. You can now toll the second Niger bridge. Before, people spend days on the old bridge. And that the place is bad. Now you have a new road, and the road ends up at the outskirts of Onitsha. So you find that one, you can toll it. Any other road that has been done fairly good, you can toll it. People will pay. Because if they don't want to pay, they can go through the old Niger bridge, and they will
go through the traffic.
Go through the traffic and the problem. So definitely, I was against the bill for privatizing the road, but now I am for the bill.
You know, there are so many areas that one would want to take you up on to ask you questions about.
Feel free.
But let's go back a bit and start from the area of you served your country. You started out young, serving your country and serving your people, from the state to the federal, and you're still doing this. But you started young. So why does it look like it's so difficult for the young to get a chance at leadership in Nigeria? I mean, we grew up hearing the youth are the leaders of tomorrow.
Yeah, the young shall grow too.
The young shall grow too. But now the young are not even getting the chance they need to even express their leadership.
The problem with us is, let me give you one good example. Once a person is determined to achieve something, he can. So the youth should be determined to get into whatever they want to be. Some of the youth are now professionals, and they have made a lot of money because they are committed and interested in, I'm sure, whatever they want, they fight for it. When I came in as a young man, I was helping my community. They said, let me come and be a politician. I said, no, I don't want to be. I'm an architect. I prefer my profession. They said, no, this community service. I said, but why are you helping the community? I said, okay, fine. So we wanted the government to create Jigawa State. So I drew a map of Jigawa State, carve it out from what we have in the Nigerian map. And from there, I started having meetings with a group of people from different local governments and so on. At that time, we were working to get the state. But we got the state, but my town was carved out of that state back to Kano. I was happy that if I was left in Jigawa, I would have been the first governor of Jigawa State. But we were pushed to Kano, which was good for me also, because it was a much larger state. I was able to govern such a state, and I served for 2 years before I was booted out by the military, So that thing. And when I decided to run for the governor, it wasn't even my decision at the time, but I was going to the villages to make sure that NRC wins in my local governments. And we go in the evening, and we don't come back until about 3 to 4 a.m. back to our houses. So one day we had a flat tire in the village. We put the spare and came up by the roadside, the other tire burst too. So at 3 a.m. who will come and pick us? So we really suffered on that day. So one of my boys said, Gaya, Bappa, he called me Bappa, that's his uncle. Why are you bothering yourself? Spending the whole night in the villages, going back home at 3 or 4 a.m. in the morning. What are you looking for? I said, no, my purpose is that I know NRC may not win in Kano, but sadly at federal level, it will win, and I have opportunity to go and get for jobs at federal capital, like I'm getting jobs now at federal capital. He said, that's all? I said, yeah. He said, why don't you run for governor? I told the boy, he's very stupid. I'm not old enough, maybe my age is not good enough for being a governor of that state. And secondly, I'm not financially that buoyant, but I was comfortable to have some money to run along with my business, my family, and what other things. So he said, no, you should try for it. I told him, no. Then he asked, who gives power? It's not God. So God is, if you pray to God, he will give you. And I said, I apologize. I said, I apologize to God for maybe being a bit rude or not thinking positively. When you have God on your side, you can go for anything and you get it. So from that, 3 days after that episode with my brother, I decided to run for governorship. At that time, Kano and Jigawa was even merged. So after a few days, luckily enough, I was in Kano, and then we ran for election in Kano, and I won the election. So it wasn't easy, but determination. Because I thought if I was in Jigawa state, to be a smooth running for me to win the election in that state. But when God deems what he wants to do, and he does it. So I was in Kano, and even in Kano, I won the election. So I was surprised even by me winning the election, but what happened was I had support of other political parties, members of other political parties, and then I worked hard. I campaigned for over 2.5 years.
But these days, in our time, the young Nigerians work hard supporting the older generation or the older politicians.
Yeah.
But then they don't get their appointment. But they don't get elected. Many of them don't get elected. They just get appointed, and after a while they are done. Is that they are not working hard enough?
Well, I believe they should work hard enough. Not that they are not working hard enough, but they should work hard enough. Because there are some SAs in the Senate, in the National Assembly, SAs of senators. They became House of Rep members. Now they became senators. It's because they have worked hard for that. It's SA. How do you expect an SA to come and become a House of Rep or a senator? But they became senators. You could recently saw who were Okada riders. They became a House of Rep member. So when you work hard, you can get it. But not that everybody must be too in that line.
The belief out there is that if you don't have a godfather, you may never get into this space.
I won my election without having a godfather.
But that was a time when godfatherism was not that serious.
Even though I have leaders, but they were not really my godfather. Said they would sponsor me to be a governor. I worked hard. I financed partially part of myself. But at the last minute, I got contribution from faction of the SDP, and I got my election. And because we went around to campaign, I got majority members of the House of Rep. You know, a House of Assembly member, unlike Lagos, it was only the governor, who was our colleague late Atedola, and then few NRC members, and most of the members are SDP. But in my state, half, even majority.
So what's the difference between having leaders and having godfathers? Because some will say that the godfathers are the one reason why many of those who come into leadership in the political space are not able to do it.
We need leaders to support young men. Some of the godfathers have got their mission or ambition when they put their boys. Well, I will be a godfather, I help you to become this and that, but these are the conditions. Part of the treasury, when you loot, should be given to you, something like that, you know. And those ones are bosses, they are not leaders. But leader is somebody who aspires the people, just like President Babangida. He was a military head of state. But he encouraged some of us who are young boys, go into the field of politics. And we are there. And virtually he protested because he banned most of the old politicians who felt that we should not survive, we should not be in that field as governors. But we came in and we did well. And even when they voted us, people felt no, it was unfair that they removed us. But because Nigeria used military rule, today political term, next time military, and so on and so on. But sadly, I have hope for the youth to join politics and become leaders. We have some young senators in the chamber, the last Senate. Yeah. We have this Ambo from Adamawa State, he's a young man. And we have some few young senators now who believe that they worked hard. Maybe some of them you can say they have leaders who have been supporting them.
But why do you think it's difficult for some older politicians to support the young? Are they afraid that if they support these young ones, they will be taken out of, they will not be relevant anymore.
No, you see, even the leaders, you don't blame them. They supported some people, but they betrayed them. So they are afraid of doing the same thing again. Because I knew some leaders supported their people, although all they were boys, they become leaders. But at the end of the day, they separated ways, and there was class crisis between the two of them, either a governor or a deputy, or a governor and a senator, or a governor, and so on and so on, and some other leaders with their boys. It was really unfortunate, but we believe that we should support the young ones to grow, so that the young also should appreciate their elders and respect them. If that is done, you don't have problem. Like me, I don't have any problem with any elder in Kano State. I respect them, whether my party or not my party. I respect them. So that's why when we went to Rimi to say, Governor Rimi support us, he was at Grigiri when we went to. He said, Gaya, you are a gentleman. You don't fight with anybody. You look humble. Maintain that position. We'll support you to be a governor. And when you become governor, make sure you give us some positions, commissioners, permanent secretary, and other positions, which I did when I became governor. I'm an NRC governor. I gave SDP people commissioners. I gave some commissioner of finance, commissioner of education. These are major positions.
So government of national unity or state unity is possible?
Ours is government of state unity, and we did it.
It's
and it works well, very well. And because the SDP at that time cannot accuse me, because even the commissioner of finance was for SDP. So if they say I'm stealing money, I say, okay, it's your representative stealing money, not me. Because we asked you to give us 3 people, a representative of SDP, to be in my government, and they did. And we worked well. Up to the time we are put it out, I still have SDP members on board. And when I had the majority members of the House of Assembly, I said, okay, let's SDP take the speaker. And I took the minority leader, and we worked together. The government of unity, there was no problem.
In other words, a government of state or national unity from different political parties is not a problem as far as they're Nigerians.
See what Tinubu has done, President Tinubu has done now. He got some people from other political parties. Wike is from PDP, and some others from PDP. And they are working. Wike has started making his usual noise in Abuja, and people are scared. So you need somebody tough around in Abuja, but let him tread with caution. He was a governor of one state. This is a governor of Nigeria. Abuja is Nigeria. Every tribe is there. So whatever decision he's taking, he should weigh the pros and cons of those decisions. You don't have to go everything by the book.
Let's step back a little bit to your time at the Senate. You've spent 16 years, a remarkable feat. But there are many who are concerned about the length of time that some politicians spend in the National Assembly or in the Senate or the House of Representatives. They feel like they're not being productive. You just sit down there collecting your emolument. What exactly are you doing? Yes, you have sponsored some bills that are working.
In the Senate, it's not only sponsoring bills that but make somebody productive. Yeah. I was chairman committee on works.
So oversight.
And I was able during the budget to introduce many roads for the interest of the country. Even the Kaduna Abuja road, it was we were able to put it in the budget, even though President Buhari was the one that finally gave the approval for the project. And many other projects. There are projects which are not even my state, like around Gomosho to Ilorin. That road was initially not in the budget. I was the one that single-handedly put it in the budget. That's not my zone. But I did that for the interest. And the one we are trying to do roads in Lagos, I supported the minister at that particular time. So we did so many, even the roads in the east, and so many other roads in the Niger Delta, and roads here in the between Niger State, or from Kwara to Niger, because these are the link roads between north and south. These are very, very important, and we supported the government and made sure that is in the budget, and the budget was being financed by the government. So
you still feel that spending a long time
in United States of America, you have senators spending 30, 40 years in the Senate. 30, even those ones, they don't sponsor bills on road. The more time you spend in the Senate, the more experienced you are, and the more ranking you become. For example, like even if you look at the Senate, the sitting arrangement, the ranking senators sit in front. The newcomer senators coming in sit at the back. But if you have an experience of being a House of Rep member and you now come to the Senate, it means you are a step higher than somebody who comes fresh to the Senate. So the more you are in the Senate, the more you have built a Senate. I thank God I've been in the Senate now for 16 years, so which is a record-making thing. So I thank Almighty God for giving me the opportunity.
But you use the example of the United States where senators are 30 years in the Senate, 40 years and all that. But they don't have the kind of mindset that we have, the it's my turn kind of mindset. Our political space has this thing, no, this
one is from that village, it's the next village.
Yes, when we finish
that's where those who are using that syndrome, most of the time they gain less. For example, if you have a senator from one constituency serving long, he will be able to take care of the areas. And then when you say, no, he should not come back again, put somebody else, then that person will constitute another location. You find that because it's a new one, he wouldn't know the workings of the Senate, how you can be able to get jobs into the Senate. Like the first year, I was able to do less. But the second time when I came back to the Senate, I was able to do a lot for my constituency, and the third and the fourth. So you find that the more you come, the more opportunity you have. But the difference between the senators in US and Nigerian senators, the demand on us is much more than on them. And our political activities are more expensive. They spend money more on advert when they are coming for election. But for us, you spend money even by the day they elected you as a senator. Tomorrow morning you see somebody coming to the house on his personal problems. Nothing more. Either his wife is sick, or he's getting married, or this and that. If you don't do, you are in trouble with them.
Is that not a sign of the failure of leadership? To provide the basic things that
you see, it is. But the population of this country, the government cannot be able to. Let's say the roads we have. We have 37,000 kilometers of roads in Nigeria, which is under federal government supervision or control. So you find that if you have 37,000 kilometers, what amount do you need to do to put on the budget to be able to satisfy the people on these road networks? And when you talk about education, see the number of students we have out of schools. Even when you go to primary school level, there are no classes. So there's a lot of, even water supply. It's not the job of a senator to provide a borehole in his village or in his constituency, but I provided over 450,000 solar powered boreholes in my own community. 450,000. It's not the job of a senator. My own is make bills and make laws.
But the senator's job is oversight. Part of his job is oversight.
Yeah, we do oversight.
So when you're oversighting, are you putting pressure on the ministries to do the things that they're supposed to do?
Yeah, we are. But you find that if the ministry is supervising roads, and these are federal roads, I don't have many federal roads in my constituency. So my constituency will complain, you have chairman works, but you didn't do road for us. But luckily now, in some cases, we try to put it as constituency project, and the roads are done. So I'm assuring you that it's not really. If you are supervising, we are not supervising everything. Yeah, senators are supervising everything. But you find that in some areas, my chairman on for example, on roads, if I was the chairman, doesn't know the small areas of somebody from the southeast, his own small concern, he needs a road. But you find that it's a difficult thing to say we are going to supervise the ministry on all projects. But we are trying. Because, for example, when I was chairman, I went to 33 states of the Federation by road with my committee. I have very good committee members. We went round. There are only 3 states that haven't gone. It's Kano, Jigawa, and Katsina. These are my neighbors.
That's your home state.
Yeah, but the supervision works because when we went round, we were able to put the contractors back on the road because we saw good, bad, and ugly contractors on Nigeria roads. We were able to treat them. Some of them we even said the ministry should write to TFCC to recover their money. And they did so. And some of the contracts were revoked because we are a serious team of senators going around the country. That's why what we saw on the second Niger bridge, and we funded the project for its being completion.
You know, you said something earlier about needing leaders to support the young politicians coming to place. Leadership is a major problem in Nigeria. Some people come into office. I'm a politician, I've been elected governor, I've been elected a senator, or a House of Reps member, but they forget that that you've been elected means you are meant to lead. And leadership means moving a people from one place to a desired space. So what is the problem? Why do we have this issue of lack of leadership, even though we have people occupying offices?
Well, some are doing their best. For example, when the government is making appointments, they move one person to another, from one place to another, on appointment or promotion and so on. But in most cases, you find that we have so many youth that have left school and the government officer cannot accommodate them. And the only thing government should do is to create an enabling environment. That means setting up training centers where people can learn skill services that they could be on their own, either in computer or in any other thing. So the government should be able to say, but I'm happy enough federal government and state government have been establishing acquisition centers to train many youth so that after leaving school, they can be on their own. And some of them have started doing well in that area. They were trained to be computer analysts, and they are doing well, and they are making money. They become programmers, and so on and so on. So you find that, the population is so large. It's just like if you put if you have a food for the community, and the people are too many, the food will not be enough for everybody. They will just, within seconds, they will clear the food and they become hungry again. So you find that we need to really encourage our elders to continue doing the best for the nation and also have a foresight. For example, the late Sedona of Sokoto and the Premier, these are people, and then the Awolowo and so on. All of them brought up the young people at that time to a higher levels. I remember almost all the senior education officers, senior clerks are all British people. But then they simply train our grandfathers or fathers. They train them quickly and then they acquire the position of the white men. But when it comes back, those people too, they are Nigerian, they stay too long on the seat, so the others want to grow. So that's why we have the problem. But I believe the government should not try to pave way for making sure that the youth are trained in such a way they can survive on their own. Otherwise, this government officer cannot apply. You go to any government office, you find that a work for one person, they employ about 10 people in that office. Some even don't have a chair or a seat and a table to work on. They were just employed because the government want to put them there.
But is that not the result of failure of leadership?
Well, it is, but people are not employed, and they need to give them a job. But if there is, the government should have a direction on what they need to do. For example, like we have youth leaving the universities, going to NYSC. We should have do a short and longer term program. We have a large land in this country for agriculture, and God loves Nigeria. I think God loves Nigeria more than any other country in the world, because we do not have hurricane, we don't have earthquake, we don't have this bushfire that clear a whole state or two states also. We don't have flood, serious flood like they have in other countries. And the land is fertile, and our weather is okay. We don't have even volcano and so on. So God loves Nigeria. Well, we need to expand our land and make it arable. And then when the NYSC people come from the university, let's have a cultural program. Train them for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, or even 1 year on agricultural services. Send them back to the farms. Encourage the farmers, open land, like from Kano to Abuja. All these places where the kidnappers are hiding people. It's a fertile land. Government should clear that and give it to people to farm so that there could be the opportunity. So all I'm saying is let us have a training facility for even the youth corps, and that they can go to the farms after training for 3 months or 6 months in an agricultural school. We should even have more agricultural universities, agricultural technologies and so on.
Distinguished Senator, when you talk about having training facilities for the youth corps, they are looking at those they consider leaders, and they are seeing them living in affluence, and they feel like, I want to be like that. So why should I be going through the farm when my leader is not? That is
our problem. God made everybody to be in a different field. He didn't say all of us stay in the office, or He wants us all to be in one office and be earning money. The people have to understand, in our community, you have a carpenter, you have a bricklayer, you have a mechanic. All these people are of different fields. And some of them now graduates are now being motor mechanics.
But then maybe the government is not providing the things that these different people need to fulfill.
What I'm saying, the government should do so. When I was doing my skill acquisition facilities, I was able to I had about 16 centers, skill acquisition centers, for about 2 classrooms for each center, and they have the equipment for training carpenters, for training bricklayers, for training, even for women to do hair salon, they have the machines for the salon, and even for welding machine, we train people. So that center, and on computer, we train them on computer technology. So within 3 months or 6 months or 9 months, depends on the size of the course, they graduate. And what I do after training them, I give them the services to the equipment to go and work with. If you are a welder, I'll buy your welding machine, and then the other facility to help you do the welding. In a community, you can make a door for the house or windows for local houses. That's a job. If you are a carpenter, they train you how to do doors or ceilings or roofs or so on and so on. So all other people were trained, even the bricklayers, we train them so that they go out to the community and do build houses and so on. So I believe we need to do that. Like in my constituency, yeah, I did that, and still those centers are working. And at the end of the day, I'm not the one running them. After I finish, I hand it back to the local government. Sometimes we had problems, the local governments are finding it difficult to run them. But at least giving them that opportunity, at least it helps the youth in my area.
Okay, let's staying with this matter of leadership and the Nigerian space as it is now.
Yeah.
I mean, when the new president came, President Tinubu, he announced the removal of fuel subsidy. Fuel subsidy is gone.
Yeah.
That statement alone shook the entire country, and it's still shaking the country. Everything went, as fuel subsidy went down, everything just went up. But many a Nigerian would look and say, there's so much pressure on us, but the leadership is living cool. What should government do different? I mean, you've been a governor, you've been a legislator, you have been in the midst of the people, started out helping your community, and now you've practically seen everything. You've seen being led, you've seen leadership in different levels. So what should government be doing in times like this?
Well, I believe the government is supposed to see any ways in which they could assist the community. Let them help the young ones to grow. Give them opportunity, like what I've started in my constituency. Give them opportunity for the youth to be trained. Give them facilities for them to build their own. If you do that, even the older people who have the job to do, encourage them. Like we have big old carpenters in the villages who just only repair small roofs. If that one, encourage them, give them facilities. Give them, not alone, give them some kind of equipment so I can enhance their position. And their children can join their parents and work with them. So the government have to think of a way forward. Not necessarily on giving somebody palliatives or employment in the government offices. Employment in government offices cannot prevent poverty. And the issue of subsidy, yeah, the president decided for the one. I think he has been smart enough to, on the day we are celebrating his inauguration, he just dropped a bomb. And we felt that bomb should have been dropped earlier than this time, so that we can find a way of surviving. And I believe the government must survive. So the government should also find a way they could bring the dollar rate down to a naira so that the inflation can be dropped down. And the government can do that. They have so many economists who they could advise them in such a way. I'm an architect, maybe I cannot talk on that field. But I believe they can do a lot. There are other ways which, even himself, the President Bola Tinubu, is thinking in that direction. And he said, give me time, these things will be over. That's what he said. So we have given him that time, and we're ready to give him all the cooperation he needed to make sure that we succeed and the Nigerians will get the petrol price lower, much, much lower.
You know, you talked about giving people the things they need to work, facilities and equipment and all. But then some may not even have a roof over their heads. The housing issue, you being an architect, can government think about how to solve that part? Can it change in Nigeria?
I don't think the government can do that.
So
but let me explain to you why. You see, the price, the houses that this government need shouldn't be more than 1 million naira. But now with 1 million, what can you build? And the common man cannot afford the 1 million. So what the government can do, the government cannot build and dash out the houses. Because if they even sell at half price, it means if they sell 10 houses, which they have built, then tomorrow they can only build 5 houses because they have only got the money of 5 houses back. And if they were able to sell these 5 houses, they only at the end they build 2 houses. So at the end of the day, they will not even have the money. The money the investor will have gone, and they won't have money to build more. So it is a difficult policy. The government cannot build a house, even for the civil servant in this country, not even for the general population. So the government must find a way of encouraging people. That's why, unfortunately, we have so much corruption in this country. Any civil servant that gets into office, or even a politician that gets into office, want to make money, build a beautiful house, buy an expensive car, remarry again if he has sense of getting 1 or 2 wives. So all these things are uneconomical expenses. Government should come down to a level whereby we should cut down expenses. Like the vehicles we are using as government officials, they are too expensive. A director using a Jeep, Lexus Jeep or Toyota Jeep, Toyota Prado, it's expensive. And we are assembling Peugeot before, and now because they don't have market, they don't have those vehicles again in the land. So you can only go buy Toyota vehicles, which are expensive. The governors are using bulletproof cars, which are damn expensive, and even to maintain on the tires every time, you have problem with that. So I believe the government should cut down on the expenditure. In India, they are using the vehicles. All government officials are using the vehicles they are manufacturing in their country. In India, even the tractors, they are manufacturing their tractors. They are not manufacturing anything. The cars were assembling, the tractors were assembling. Even the Inaso company, they are also assembling. They are not producing the engines. We need to produce. We have a Jakarta Steel company. It's not making plates. If they are making plates, we can mold them into cars, into other things. They are not making steel blocks. I was in India. I went to one factory in Punjab. They are producing tractors. Everything in that factory, all the blocks they are getting is from a small steel factory. Steel assembling steel factory like the Katsina steel rolling mills. That factory in India is not the biggest. It's not even as big as Katsina steel rolling mills. But they are producing blocks. Those blocks, the engine they have in the factory, they make holes into them, and then they become injectors, or they become block engine, where they cut a hole to put the piston, and so on. All those things were done within that thing. So why don't we do that? But in our own country, when they produce Ajakuta steel, we are only producing road arrows, which is not to our interest. We should have been producing blocks for cars. We should have been doing the plates to make mold for our vehicles, and so on.
But why is it so? Why? How did we get here?
I think it's a Nigerian syndrome. Unfortunately, our leaders, the forefathers, have started well. Imported vehicles, they want to do agriculture and so on. We had groundnuts for groundnut pyramids. But now we don't have that. We have eaten all the groundnut we are producing, but not even exporting much. So I'm saying that we need to change. We need to have leaders that can have a better vision for this country. But sadly, we need to do a lot. But even the Jakarta Steel, we should now think of making blocks of iron so that you can cut through those irons and make engine blocks and so on and so on. But we're not doing that.
Senator, we need to do things differently. We can't do things the same way and expect a different result. Yeah. What do you suggest should be done? I mean, for industries, we have to stand. And for investors to come into the country, what are those things that can be done? And some people will say the low-hanging fruits that we can start off with.
Well, bro, I'm telling you, like I said, that the Ajakuta Steel should be made into a way of this production, not producing iron for us. Let them make things that we can make cars, we can make motorcycles, we can make anything, we can mold anything from the what I saw in Ajakuta. But we're not using that for that purpose. So, and secondly, is that the government should definitely encourage people to be on their own. Let people be self-reliant. If we have enough power supply in this country, just small scale industry will survive. But even when you have now power, the rate the people at the companies are charging the discourse is so high. So the government have to put peg in many things. The government must put a peg in what the common man, whatever is getting will be at low price, and you produce at low price. Like in agriculture, we're also killing the process. The fertilizer is now more expensive than a bag of corn. So which is not supposed to be the case. When I was a governor, we were selling a bag of fertilizer 4 naira. 4 naira just 25, 30 years ago. But now it's in thousands. And a bag of rice and a bag of corn cannot be able, if you are a farmer and you want to have rice and you need to buy fertilizer, you find that your cost at end of production will be very high. Even again, beyond the common man to eat. Because common man in those days, when we were government, they don't even like to eat maize or even gari. They would prefer to eat rice because they had the money to buy rice and many other things. But now even the money to buy corn and eat is difficult. Or even cassava to eat.
You know, distinguished senator, this conversation shouldn't come to an end if we don't talk about the way forward. This is where we are right now. Things are tough. Things are difficult. There's a leadership vacuum that is affecting everything. You've said it now. The leaders need to get on. But some will say, how do you define a leader? I was having a conversation with my colleagues, and they said the biggest problem in Nigeria is consequence management. Nobody is punished when they do wrong, and nobody's rewarded when they do right. How would we change this?
Well, I believe if the leaders, I may be one of them, if the leaders can change, it will be better. For example, there was a guy who was able to but assemble an aircraft, even if it is by kind of electronic remote and so on. I saw recently some institute of girls, higher institution of girls, they were building a robot. Those should be encouraged. They should be encouraged. But maybe after seeing them on television, that will be the end of it. Even the secondary school may not have enough money to continue to finance them to do their research. But I was so impressed. And I know about many years ago, somebody did a helicopter in Plateau State. And the helicopter can fly to a certain distance. And then that's the end of it. You don't even hear about that person. One of our best designers of cars in US is Nigerian. He left this country and he's designing cars for companies that are producing this brand new, modern and expensive cars. So we have the talent in this country. If you go out to Nigeria, if you leave this country to go and see a doctor in London or in US, you find that at the end of the day you'll be seeing a Nigerian who was trained here and left to go and get higher pay in those areas and then live in his country there. So all we are saying, we need to organize our country properly. We need to have a good direction in this country. Whether it is hard or right, we have to make sure that anybody that has been trained in the university by government money should come and work in the government organization. And he should not leave. We find that some people, when they are trained, they leave the country and then only be sending some money to the families.
Remember that bill, that proposed bill, there was a negative reaction to that bill of not leaving after 5 years. But you being one of the older generation, the older leaders,
yes.
What kind of change do you think you need to bring into yourself and your space to affect the change that we want to see?
Well, the government should first support. For example, these vehicles we are using, they are too expensive even for the government to run, even too expensive for us to run. The government should look for any official. Let them give him a minimum standard big cars that he can use. But when everybody is using Jeep, this Land Cruiser, like we have produced this pickup, as if we are producing in this country. Everybody is buying that. How much is that? Thousands of naira, hundreds of thousands, millions of naira. So why don't we change to something more modest? And I remember when I was a governor, we were using Nigeria-made Peugeot. No governor is supposed to use any car more than at higher level than Peugeot. So we have to use Peugeot. And that's what the Peugeot were producing. And even the National Assembly members were given Peugeot. So, but nowadays, we say we want Lexus, we want bulletproof cars. What for? A bulletproof car can buy about 4 or 5 cars. Not bulletproof. So why that? So I'm saying that the government has to change. Even from the leadership, even from the presidency. They are not supposed to be using Maybach. Mercedes Maybach S for the president. I'm just giving an example. Or you put the cost of that. So if the system change from the top up to the bottom, things will change. And you can feel the enormous money will be reducing. With like cost of vehicles in this country for officials is very, very high. Added together, it be in billions, if not 1 trillion of the budget of the money is 1 trillion. So what I'm saying, let's look at that as make some amendments.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Nice meeting you. You're a great man.
And that is Newsnight. Thank you for being a part of the show. We would, of course, like to hear from you. Our handles are on your screen. Please do make sure to reach out to us. Let's get your perspective on the conversation. Also, know that you can watch other episodes of this program, past episodes of the program. Just go to channelstv.com/podcast and Newsnight. You get to see those past episodes. Thank you so much. I'm Neota Igbe. Bye-bye.